So I suck at this, and I'm doing it because it's hard, not in spite of it. But today is going to be week 1 of 100 of me putting out at least one YouTube video a week for 100 weeks. I've consistently put time and effort into YouTube, but never been able to sustain it for the long term. And so that is a big reason behind why I set this goal. As a coach, I think it's important that we do hard things because every week or every day, we ask our clients to do the same thing. So if we're not walking the walk, in my opinion, you're a bit of a fraud and you have no business coaching or even influencing others. So if you're a coach and you're going through a challenging time, this video is for you. 6 a.m. Nobody really cares if I skip this or not, but I made a commitment to myself and I'm going to keep it. For me, choice is very important. I am choosing to do hard things. I identify as someone who does hard things. And in saying that, I need to represent in my actions what I say to myself in private. My self-talk governs a lot of what I do. And today, my self-talk is telling me to not get on this elliptical and then get on the treadmill. But ultimately, I have some goals that I want to achieve. I would like to compete in the tactical games this year, and that's going to require me to increase my aerobic fitness and do a lot of running, moving, and conditioning work that I'm not necessarily used to doing. If you've watched my past videos, you've got a glimpse into like what a training day looks like for me, and that's not what this is going to be about. This isn't going to be about, oh, here's Paul's day in the life. I really just want to take you along and teach you the lessons that I believe that I have to impart. And your clients can see when you're not holding yourself to your own standards. I think a large reason why my coaching business has been successful over the last 19 years has been because my clients know that I walk the walk. And a big part of how I walk the walk is by doing things that most other people wouldn't do. I suck at running. I suck at doing conditioning, but I suck right now. And I'm not going to suck forever, and I'm going to put in the work to get better. And I embrace the fact that I suck. I actually really enjoy that I suck because I see a runway of progression. How can I ask my clients to embrace discomfort if I'm not willing to do so myself? It was a great run. It was actually the best that I've felt since I started running. I was able to maintain a 10-minute per mile pace at around 135, 138 beats per minute, which is in zone 2. So that's pretty cool. I remember when a 10-minute pace sort of absolutely floored me when I started running 6 months ago. But I mentioned, physical exertion is the hard that I choose. And one of the things that cardio, like extended duration cardio, whether it be, Stairmaster, elliptical, running now for me, it lets me live in my own head a little bit. And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I yet to be determined. But I get to do some thinking, and something that came up for me last week in a conversation with a friend of mine is, we choose hard things because it allows us to take advantage of growth, right? You do something hard, you grow from it, and you move through it. But the important piece within that process is the gap, right? It sucks to be out of shape. It sucks to, be trying to build a business and be floundering. But all of these opportunities when we are not proficient at something create a gap. And that gap is where growth happens. So you identify a weakness, you do the hard thing to try to address that weakness, but then there's a gap, and that gap in time. And it's only in the gap where growth happens. So one of the things that I've been keeping in mind for myself is that those periods where you feel like you're just moving through the mud, going through the motions, doing the hard thing, not necessarily seeing the results, that's actually what you're after. Growth happens in the gaps. And a big part of whether it be my coaching or my mentorship, it comes down to teaching people how to live in those gaps, teaching people how to be uncomfortable in those gaps, teaching people to see the opportunity in those gaps. And I think the more gaps we can create in our lives, the more opportunities we have to fortify ourselves and to build ourselves towards success. I wasn't always successful in business. I wasn't always successful in marriage. I wasn't always successful in the things that I'm doing. And I still would not consider myself to have reached the pinnacle of what success means to me, because ultimately it's a moving target. And as I get to the, that one mountaintop, the best view of the next mountaintop is from the mountain you just climbed. Talk about doing hard things, it comes down to control, especially when it comes down to physically hard things. I can control everything that happens in this room. I can control what weights I load on the bar, I can control what program I'm doing, and I can control my effort. But there's still a gap. There's a gap between where I am and where I want to be. There's that extra rep, that extra 5 pounds. There's always a gap to be addressed. And that's why training is so transformative. Control is a really interesting topic for me because lately I've been a quote guy. I don't know why, but this quote speaks to me. It's life happens at the speed of life. And I think a lot of the time we waste trying to fight against life, fight against our circumstances, as opposed to accepting them as hard. If you keep fighting against your life circumstances, you're never going to be able to move forward. You're just going to lament your situation. You're going to resent the life that you live when ultimately you only have one shot at it. Choosing your hurt is really hard. That was really hard. When I talk about like lamenting your situation, I'm speaking from experience here. This isn't like just me running off at the mouth. You know, there have been so many times in my life where I've created these circumstances that just haven't worked out. You know, I've had failed businesses. I've had failures in many aspects of my life. But sitting in the failure never helps. There's a balance to be struck between sitting in the failure long enough to examine it, to learn from it, to understand your mistakes, but then switching that into action and taking that first step. And it honestly doesn't matter what that first step is, as long as it's a step forward, you're going to be making progress. You know, when you first start your business, it doesn't really matter what systems you have because you only have a certain number of clients. When you're first starting in a gym, it doesn't really matter what program you have because ultimately you've never trained before. It's a novel stimulus. But as you take those steps, as you learn, you'll figure out what works and what doesn't. You'll figure out what you need and what you don't. But what won't help you is sitting in the fact that you fucking suck. When it comes to that action, another thing people forget is alignment. You want to have alignment across all areas of your life. Think of it like this. If you hold a political view over here, and then you act in a different way over here, there's a misalignment. Same goes for your business. If you say that you stand for integrity, you stand for honesty, building relationships, integrity should be matched in the way that you market your business. Building relationships should be aligned with the systems and processes that are involved in your actual coaching process. And so for me, when I talk about doing hard things, I have to be a product of my product. If I'm going to ask my clients to push outside their comfort zones, I need to be able to do the same things too. You know, training 15, 16 times a week. That's just what I choose to do. Your hard thing could be anything, as long as it is putting you in a position to do that. Every business problem at the core is a you problem. And I firmly believe that. Like, your business is a personal development exercise masked as a wealth building opportunity. Like, you're never going to scale beyond your ability to make decisions. You're never going to be able to lead others unless you can lead yourself. You're never going to be able to problem solve unless you can take decisive actions. Your business is going to expose every blind spot in who you are, in your identity, all your weaknesses, you know, all your insecurities. The biggest one is self-worth, imposter syndrome. Your business is going to expose all of that. So how are you going to overcome it? What vehicle are you going to drive to be able to get over these issues?
doing this video is way harder than doing this workout. And I'm honestly not very happy with the way it's going because I feel like I'm just talking about myself, which is not what I want this to be. And so I thank you guys for following along. I thank you guys for listening, providing feedback. Ultimately, I'm going to get better. And I'm not engaging in this 100-week challenge because I'm confident. I'm doing it to build confidence. I'm doing it to build the skill. I want to be able to form relationships in a virtual capacity in the same way that I form them in a personal capacity. Because ultimately, I feel like connecting with people is a great strength of mine, but I just have trouble translating that into the online space. So whatever the hard thing that you're encountering, ask yourself, what's holding you back from just doing the thing? What's holding you back from taking that first step? Are you afraid to make mistakes? Are you afraid of how it will reflect on you? Are you afraid of the perception of others? Who do you need to become in order to live the life you want to live? That person's going to have to do things when they don't want to. That person's going to have to live up to standards that they previously didn't have to live up to. That person is going to have goals that are really fucking scary. So that's a person committed to raising the bar for themselves. Workout done. Started off with some sprint drills, then into some loaded reactive jumps and some plyometric push-ups. Then hit a superset of deadlift and overhead press, 4 sets there, into a superset of goblet lateral lunges and single arm dumbbell row, 3 sets there, and then 3 sets of hanging leg raises superset with 3 sets of isometric calf raises because I keep tearing my calves. But the video wasn't about the workout, it just so happened that I'm filming it while I'm training. Hopefully my lifts are impressive. Probably not. You know, I mentioned that I suck at this YouTube thing, so if you've watched this far, please make sure to like, share, subscribe, and let me know what you want to learn about. I have managed to build a business from 0 to almost 7 figures. I have managed to do some pretty cool things in my life, whether it be from competing in powerlifting at the highest level, stepping on a bodybuilding stage, or just being someone who didn't feel that they were worthy, now truly believing that they're good enough. And I think that building the business was a big part of that. I think the training was a big part of that. And this journey is a big part of that.